wrestlers weren't making a lot, even the top guys. So Hall and Nash were like, screw this. Billionaire Ted's offering us a bajillion, gazillion, $1,000 million. And
right.
Vince, you're not paying us enough, so we're out of here. So when they left and they did the whole outsider thing, and then ultimately formed the NWO, you saw how that went.
Oh, and the big steal.
Yeah, and that right there, when they formed the NWO and Hogan turned heel, which was probably the greatest, if the biggest heel turn in history.
They stole Hogan.
Yes.
I wouldn't say stole, because I don't think he was really doing anything. He was like, I think on bad terms with the WWF at the time. But he
felt old because Vince
he was old.
He was like
20 years ago.
Yeah. What it was Vince was going into this new generation era, the gimmick era, and he wanted people like Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels to shine.
Right.
And Hogan was already leathery and tan looking, and he looked
hair.
He looked like a mannequin. So by the time it was like, you gotta go, dude. You're old.
So he went over, and that was a big pickup. But then to turn the number one babyface of all times, every time that there is. He turns that guy into a heel, giving him the stippled, shitty beard, and just like
with the
horrible,
blonde, half blonde, half. What was it? It was like this was blonde and that was black.
No, it was all black until here. He didn't want to color his regular hair, so like that was like
But you know what? It worked, and when they
time.
formed NWO, they were at that point. Vince lost.
Yeah, and that's when they started attracting everybody. Macho Man,
Kurt Hennig, rest in peace.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody went over there, dude.
So the WWF couldn't respond in talent-wise.
Yes.
They couldn't be like, oh, we're going to bring this person or this person. And even though ECW was gaining popularity, it wasn't popular enough that if they pulled one of those...
Yeah, they were in last place.
They weren't even in a place. They were finding a place at the time.
That's true.
So they couldn't pull people over from ECW, and even if they did, they couldn't get the big enough pull, the TV pull, that WCW got from pulling the WWF's people.
And don't get me wrong, there was a few from WCW that jumped ship to WWF.
Yeah.
Not many. It wasn't as many, but you had Jericho, you had Big Show,
Brian Pillman.
Yeah, Brian Pillman, that's right. Rest in peace. There was not many, dude.
Flash? What's his name?
Flash Funk.
Was Flash Funk in WCW at the time, or was he ECW at the time?
I don't remember.
He was one of the two. He jumped over. He still didn't get enough pull. So what they had to do, and it's what you're seeing now in the political times, smear the shit out of WCW. And their very first incarnation...
Vice versa.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but big time, they were like smear campaigns.
Yeah.
They had sketches in which they created a Billionaire Ted character with the big gap in his teeth and, hey, wiggle, boom, bam, boom.
Like this.
Yeah. And so, like, they had created a character, and they were making fun of him and stuff like that. They started creating more characters, like the fake Diesel and... Razor Ramon came in, brought in by Jeff.
That was Jim Ross.
Jim Ross.
Jim Ross's idea.
Jeff Ross is a comedian, so So they gave Jim Ross a little bit more creativity. He brought in the fake Diesel, which I think was Kane,
who became Kane. Glenn Jacobs,
and then the fake Scott Hall, and then
who became nobody.
He was just
fuck that guy.
They found him on the street. Hey, you want to be Scott Hall? Oh, and then
literally.
And it was just this big smear campaign. My favorite, though, that their big smear, because at the time they brought in the undefeated giant Goldberg, who would come in.
Love that fucking Gilbert.
So
let's talk about Gilbert.
Goldberg
with the chant, like the Goldberg chant.
Yeah, so Goldberg came in, and one of the big things was there was this Goldberg chant, and they found out that the Goldberg chant was actually put in over the PA system, and nobody was really saying it. So they had this guy who was a jobber, who he would just use on purpose, Dwayne Gill, who would come out
respected in the business.
Yeah,
it was,
and they shaved his head, and they put him in the same shorts, and they gave him like the same intro where he would be brought out by the cops and stuff like that.
And to add to that, not to interrupt you, visually you have to depict this man visually. They depicted him as this big monster character, but he was like 5'6".
Yeah, he was a little guy with like a pudge stomach. And he came out and he'd be like snarling. And his big line was, I'm not going to ask who's next. Who's first, and he would come out. And he came out in a Royal Rumble
and he
once.
Had the sparklers.
Yeah, someone came out with they come out with sparklers and light it over his head, or they would like hit him with like a fire extinguisher, and he'd be like, oh, and it was so brilliant.
It was good writing.
To parody. Goldberg, who was like this unstoppable force. He couldn't be beaten. He
had 120. It was ridiculous, and it wasn't.
You mean 120 and
what?
Oh man!
You know what I meant.
Drink a whole fifth for that one.
The point is, the man was depicted as being undefeated, and the count wasn't even that high. It got ridiculous. It was like 300 people.
Well, it's like Andre the Giant. It's it's nothing new, but it was huge because he would just destroy people with his spear or whatever the hell he called it, which everybody's doing nowadays.
Let's talk about another. That was a good point. The whole Goldberg thing and the Gilbert, that was funny. That was, I guess, courtesy of Vince Russo, who was the writer at the time. He was one of them.
Yeah.
So it was probably him and Vince, creative. Another sticking it to WCW moment was the DX invasion.
Oh, that was great. That was one of my favorite things. Not only of the Attitude Era, but of the WCW WWF war.
In history, man. For those who aren't familiar, you non-marks, or even some of you marks that are too young to remember this.
Or some of you Larrys.
Or Larrys.
Patricks.
Any Patricks.
Okay. Or Schmoes. Or Moes. Okay, anyway.
What do you got?
All right, so... in I want to say roughly mid '98, stomach, Jimmy's stomach. He's showing it to our 360 cam folks, and Brian's shrugging his shoulders.
Distracting.
Yeah, I throw up in my mouth type stuff. Around about '98, they did this angle, this segment, which was actually really cool, where they had DX show up to a WCW Nitro event. They literally walked to the arena. I guess they were in the same town.
They were in, they were just
they walked over there.
they rented a bunch of Army surplus Jeeps and helmets and all this stuff.
A fake tank,
and they were like invading. It was literally called the WWF Invasion.
And they were like, we're firing the first, like Triple H, because it was the incarnation of this DX. It was all five of them.
Right.
It was China. It was Billy Gunn,
X-Pac,
Road Dogg. So it was the full group. Sean wasn't even around. So it was a great segment. If you guys, please YouTube it. It's on YouTube, or go to the WWE Network and watch it on.
And ultimately we saw how that came up with WWF destroyed them after some just bad WCW talent decisions, and here we are today.
And there's actually tons more that paints the picture of what happened between these two.
Want to learn more? Go to your local library.
Yeah, you can do that. The more you know. We'll harp more on that on future episodes. But let's move on, shall we? All our 360 people.
Yeah. So that wraps up the wrestling segment of
Let's
the
clap
shows.
it up.
Yeah, clap it up.
WrestleMania. All right. This next topic. I'm actually gonna have Jimmy Jam go ahead and hold the reins on this one.
All right.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because I wasn't a very big fan of either one of these shows over the years. I will say this though.
Okay.
I will say this to start it off. I personally think Conan O'Brien is a little bit more talented